a call, you have no idea if they listen or when they listen. So how do you know when to follow up? Right? Like then you're just kind of shooting in the dark,
Right.
and you've lost control of the interaction. So
live overviews create urgency.
Right.
And some people, like, and my upline was kind of against it for a long time because they felt like, well, it's a waste of time. You can send a video. But I'm like, live overviews, you can't replace them. Like they create urgency and they give your team a reason to reach out. And what I've learned, and you guys will learn this too, is that what duplicates is your team learning how to do it. So there for a little while, we actually offered workshops where our team could come in and practice presenting and we'd give them feedback. So they started gaining confidence and would present too. Kristen's like a phenomenal presenter. She's presented a number of times on product. She's presented a number of times on business. And what happens would you agree, Kristen, that when it's your week to present, do you feel like you recruit harder for people to come watch the overview? Right?
Yeah, there's more credibility when it's you actually being the voice on that video instead of just, oh yeah, this is somebody on the team.
Yep.
I seem to get better response when it's actually me doing the talking.
Yep. And so that's what I pitched to my team is like, look, when it's your turn to present, you have a super duper good reason to reach out to even like your chicken listers that you were afraid to ask to take a look at the business. Now you can like slide into their DMs and just ask for their feedback. You can say, hey, I've always valued, I've really always valued you as a whatever, however you know them, would love your feedback on this presentation I give tonight, right? And they get to capture a recording of it and they can convert it to YouTube. And now they've got their own opportunity overview to share whenever they want, right? So this is like leadership, 2.0, kind of like raising up the mini me's within your company. But
I have a question.
Yeah.
My upline is not doing any overviews at this time. And I feel like corporate sometimes they're hit and miss.
Yep.
And so they're too long and they may be a little bit too sophisticated for some newbies. So may I plug into you all's overview? And how would I get that info?
Well, we don't have any scheduled right this second because we just come back from the new year and I'm doing a launch with my academy. So we'll probably start picking up our overviews in February. Our company, all of us were so busy pushing collagen for the past 30 days, but yeah. For sure, we can get you on this. It's this number right here. It's this Zoom line. On Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And anybody outside of my team is welcome, even from a scout and seller perspective. You guys just want to check out what the overviews look like,
And it's at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, but you just like confirm with us before you jump on because we might not have one that night because we don't have them scheduled right now. We did up through the holidays. You guys, like my team did awesome. You guys were presenting all the way up till I feel like the week before Christmas. It was pretty steady.
Good. That'll be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to do today, I had some requests I did a podcast a couple weeks ago or months. it's a blur, but it was on time management and how to manage your calendar. And the feedback I got, it was from Aaron. It wasn't Aaron Dorgan, but Aaron, I'm excited you're here. That's why Aaron, Aaron's in pod 2. Okay. Okay. Will get you the recording. It was another Aaron that asked. She was like, well, your time management podcast was awesome, but it was more for like now when you're not working your 9 to 5. Like, what did you do when you still worked your 9 to 5? Like, how did you grow this business to 6 figures? So she got me thinking, and I went back and did some digging, and I found an old presentation I did for, some of you guys know the Cepedas. They're top income earners with our company. I did a workshop for them at a Super Saturday, a training event a couple years ago when I was still working full time on time management in network marketing while working full time. So I thought what I could do with you guys today, if you think it would be of value, is I'm actually going to share the presentation with you guys and just kind of show you how I time blocked and what I did to really scale to 6 figures while working full time and making sure, really treating it like the income opportunity it was with organization and just holding myself accountable to be activities that grow. Now, what's funny, I went back to my workshop. This is from 2016. So it's funny because this was like 16, 17. This was before I was even on LinkedIn for the most part. I was hanging out on Facebook, but the content is still completely relevant. When I talk about growing your network and following up, it's just insert media platform, right? Like whichever one you're using, right? So with that being said, what I'm gonna do is pull up my slide deck. This shows you how old school this is. You guys see my short hair? Kristen, you probably remember that hair. See, how do I make this full? There we go. All right. So anyway, so the presentation is really about going from being a sometimes network marketer to an intentional part-time. There's a difference between doing something sometime and being a hobbyist, and doing something part-time but being committed to it consistently. Does that make sense? I think a lot of people in network marketing fall into the sometimes when it's convenient and not the part-time consistently, right? And if you're not on mute, if you don't mind muting yourself, just because I'm sharing now, I don't want to have to go backwards. So where's my little cursor? Okay. Sorry guys, I can't see my screen here. Let me move this up here. All right. So the objective of the presentation is to give real world, tangible time management tactics and ideas of income producing activities through a couple different things we're going to do. I'm going to make you guys do a gut check, and I want you all to have paper out and pen because I want you to work through this. And then we're going to talk about what do you have to do to eliminate distractions. When something is part-time around the rest of your life, everything is a distraction. Can I get agreement on that? Like everything is a distraction when this is not what you're doing full-time, especially when it's not, do or die, right? Like it's on the side. It's not, the end of the day, if you don't succeed is are you still going to be able to buy groceries, right? Most people in network marketing end up not being able to eliminate distractions because they find 12 different reasons why they need to do whatever they're distracted by because they're not committed to their system, if that makes sense. So, and then we're going to dive into the 3 different steps of the 3 I's. You guys have heard me talk about this before, and how you can apply the 3 I's to your time management, and then you just repeat till you succeed. So here's the gut check. And this is important for you guys. And this was an exercise I had to do it myself. And I'll show you guys a calendar in a second how you can do this. And this goes back to when Kristen and I were working together. I had to look at my calendar to ask myself, how much time am I truly willing to commit to build this business, right? How much time am I willing to commit? And then what makes it easier to figure that out is to actually look at your calendar, okay? And say daily, how much time can I commit? Weekly, what does that look like, okay? And I'll walk through this with you in a second. And then the other thing is, how many of you get resistance from your family, right? Do you have their support? I think that when you go on this journey and you're really leaning in and you want to make this more than just part-time pay, it's going to take up some of your time. Obviously, right? It's going to take up pockets of your time that were spent with a spouse, maybe after the kids went to bed, or a little bit of a Saturday when you would be playing with the kids, or maybe it's when the kids are napping and your spouse has to pick up the slack, right? And so unless you have a candid, honest conversation with your family about why you're doing what you're doing and getting them on board with you, they're going to be a huge distraction, right? So if you guys look behind my office, there's a huge pile of dirt. There's my husband. I don't know if you can see him. And I don't even know if you can see my camera. Oh, you can't because I'm sharing my screen. Ha! Okay. Well, one of the conversations I had with my kids and my spouse this year, Jake, you guys know, was, one of the reasons mommy's going to pick up a whole nother business is so we can put a pool in the backyard, so we can pay for our kids to be in private school during quarantine, right? And these were things where I had conversations and gained agreement with them, right? that these are things that are important to all of us, so that when mommy has a coaching call at 7 p.m., or if, again, back to also network marketing, if we have an opportunity call at 8 p.m. and my oldest is still awake, he knows that I'm doing this for us. Maybe it's for a trip to Disney World. Maybe it's to get debt paid off. Maybe it's to create freedom and choice. Whatever that is, the more open discussion you have with your family about it, the more support you're going to get versus resistance. Because the more resistance you're going to get, the more distracted you're going to be, right? And then it's really important that you map that time we talked about out on the calendar, right? So what I mean by that is what I really challenge you guys to do is take a calendar like this. You can take any calendar you want. You can download one off of your computer. And it's really, again, this is being strategic about committing to your business, okay? And asking yourself, Monday through Saturday or Monday through Sunday, if you don't take a Sabbath day, where in my calendar am I committing consistently? It's part-time, but it's consistent, right? Where am I willing and open to practice putting in time for my business? So maybe you need to get up an extra 30 minutes early in the day, right? If your day is packed from 8 to 5 with not a minute to spare because you are in a career where you're in the OR, you have no breaks, then you're going to have to find pockets of time outside of your job. Now, many of you, especially now in quarantine, I would argue you have pockets of time during the day, right? That you may be able to work in some of your work. Even when Kristen and I worked together, there were pockets of time on my calendar where I could squeeze some things in during the day from home in my calendar, right? But regardless, the bottom line is, unless you have a reality check with your time, you're never going to be able to budget your time effectively. It's the same with your finances, right? Like I would liken this to finances, right? Like you're never going to save or invest or have the financial success that you quote unquote want unless you're willing to open up your bank account, look at what you're spending, look at what you're saving, and see what's left, right? So it's like, it's the same analogy with time as a quotient. It's a variable, it's a value that is not infinite, right? We have finite periods each day. So if you feel like at the end of each day, you're not hitting what you want to do with your business, let's get more organized about it, right? So I think a great exercise for all of you guys, again, is to go look at your calendar and ask yourself. So for me, when I was working full time, I'll show you guys what my little calendar looked like. Okay. So here, this is fall. This was a long time ago. But what you can see in my calendar is that my day started at 5 a.m., right? My day started at 5 a.m. And what I did, and I'll come back to this in a bit because this is like a lot before we actually get into the eyes, but I found pockets between 5 and 5:30 to pour into my network marketing business first, right? And then the next little sliver of time I had was listening to team calls. We actually have daily team calls, right, at 8 a.m. And then I might wiggle in a little bit of work at noon, between noon and 1, over my like quote unquote lunch hour. And then what can I do later in the day, right? In the evening after the kids go to bed, right? So the bottom line here is that what's important is before you fill this calendar in, before you fill the calendar in, is knowing how much time you're willing to commit and where is it going to fit in your calendar, right? So for me, where I landed was in general, because I knew I wanted to be making, this is actually what helped me get to 6 figures, because I was pregnant and knew I was going to have a baby. And I knew that I wanted to be making well exceeding 6 figures before he was born so I could quit, right? So my level of commitment was pretty high, right? So what I told myself was I committed to between an hour to an hour and a half every day, Monday through Saturday. An hour to an hour and a half every day, Monday through Saturday. Now you guys could see what I just showed you a second ago. It wasn't all at one time, right? That hour to an hour and a half was peppered. It might have been 30 minutes in the morning. It could have been, you know, an hour or 45 minutes at lunchtime, might be 15 minutes after the kids go to bed, right? But the bottom line is I looked at the calendar and agreed with myself that if I want to hit this number by this day, I have to put in the time. And hey, let's think about that for a second, okay? An hour and a half to even an hour and a half to 2 hours. I think it was more like an hour and a half to 2 hours. An hour and a half to 2 hours a day to make well over 6 figures. Think about what you're asking, right? Think about it for a second. Like when you first say, you're like, oh my gosh, where do I have an hour and a half? But it's like, how many hours are you working right now to make how much money you're making, right? So it's the long game, right? It's the work is a finite amount of work of burning the midnight oil so that you don't have to juggle both at the same time, depending on your goals, right? This all depends on your goals. So for me, that's what I was willing to commit, okay? So let's get back to my presentation. And so where did the slides go? You guys are going to laugh at me. I don't know what I did with those slides. Where could they have disappeared to? What would they be under? Maybe Keynote? Oh, there we go. Okay, so number one, eliminate distractions. So, you know, in order to be really efficient with your time, how many of you are starting your morning by checking Messenger or checking LinkedIn, your LinkedIn inbox? That may or may not be the most efficient use of your time, depending on how you're dividing up your income producing activities. I tend to look at when I was really targeting this income producing activity chart, guys, I was like a ninja. Like I would get in that sheet I just showed you. I printed out stacks of them. Kristen's probably heard me talk about this before, and pull one out a week. I'd pull one out a week, and each day I'd check off as I went. And there were days where like shit hit the fan at work and I missed everything in the column, right? And it was like a litmus test the next day that I needed to pick up the slack, right? But I was constantly keeping myself honest on where I was getting my work done. Here's the thing. If I only had 30 minutes between 5 and 5:30 a.m. to do the things I'd identified as being income producing, I didn't have time to just mindlessly scroll through media, right? So just be careful what you're using social media for and if it's being productive or wasting your time. And that's where the messenger and the email piece come from. And that's the book, Kristen, that I sent you, the 4-Hour Work Week, is, you know, we spend a disproportionate amount of our day answering other people's urgent needs in email and in messenger. And when you spend most of your day kind of a slave to what other people want, you're constantly in reaction mode versus creation mode and like focusing on what you need. So even in your day job, if you can get away with it, I would recommend you only check your emails in certain times, right? And I got to this point in my day job where I would check my emails for a certain period of time during each hour instead of just constantly being you know, responding to everyone else's needs. And you can do the same thing with Messenger. And I do it now to this day. I work in quadrants where I only check email and Messenger at certain times throughout the day to keep me from getting distracted from the income producing activities, right? So that brings me to the 3 I's. So there's 3 I's that I allocate to this day. And I suggest all of you guys allocate to your work to grow and scale your business. And this is something I've talked about in the past. So if you mathematically calculate the number of hours you're willing to put in for a week in your business, a third of that time should be introducing yourself to a new network, okay? A third of that time should be you growing your network, because we are in the business of networking to network and grow and scale a business. 1/3 of it should then also be to be inviting people to take a look at the opportunity you have, right? So you're taking the introduce, which are your warm, that's your cold market, and you're bringing them to your warm market, which is invite to look. So this is what Kristen and I and a couple of you guys were talking about, Reagan, whenever you guys first came on, about opportunity overviews. have you gotten to the point in the conversation that you've earned the right to invite people to take a look? You should be spending a third of your week inviting people to take a look at the opportunity, right? And then the last third is invest. And that last third is investing in you and investing in your team. And we'll talk a little bit about this. Many people in network marketing get stuck spending too much time in the invest piece right here on their own development and not enough time actually growing their business. Okay. Right. So like if this call, I know this isn't you guys, but if this call is the only thing you're doing for your business this week, you're not growing your business, right? You haven't spent time in the introduce and in the invite section this week. That's actually what's going to grow your business, right? So we'll break that down in a minute. So introduce, right? This, again, these slides are a little old, but there's different ways. There's push and pull campaigns where, you know, you're reaching out or you're creating attraction marketing towards you, right? But the bottom line is, where are you going to grow your network? Right now, a lot of it's on media. There's not a lot of belly to belly going on, local groups and communities. So one would argue that just about your only place to network right now is on social media. Obviously, this is a LinkedIn training, so I'm biased towards LinkedIn. But wherever you're going to network, a third of your week needs to be growing your network. And I think that sometimes we get complacent and we stop growing our network, and that's where we start losing lead generation, right? Where my business is hottest, where I'm bringing in the most enrollments, is where I'm cognizantly growing my network while pushing my brand out there. Because it's new content, the new people, creating curiosity with new people who've never seen it before, right? And so that's the one thing I think that sometimes gets overlooked, okay? Number two is the invite piece that we just talked about, the second I. Back in the day, we had live events. Do you guys remember that? For those of you on wine, you had tastings, right? You had like, you had things you could invite people to come see. Right now, it's virtual. Are you holding overviews for people to take a look? Do you have videos you can share for people to take a look? Do you have, you know, a reference list of things that you can share when there's, you know, promotions? Maybe there's a sale with your company. Maybe there's promotions, there's something new coming out. And do you have a reference list of people you can reach out to who've been sitting on the fence to kind of nudge them over, right? So that's the second I, is what are you, in each business it's a little bit different, but what are you doing to constantly invite people to take a look at the opportunity, take a look at the products, take a look at the community, right? And then the third I of your week is invest. Again, this is the piece that most people tend to spend too much time in and not enough time actually growing their business. So if you've got 3 hours a week to work on your business, only an hour of it should be in the invest piece based on this formula. And half of that should be you developing your team. The other half would be another 30 minutes would be developing you, right? So most of you probably have more than 3 hours a week, but hopefully that math is kind of making sense to you though. If you have 3 hours a week, only 30 minutes of it should be on personal development. I am a huge advocate of personal development, as long as you're spending proportionately enough time growing your business, right? So in the invest piece, you have to ask yourself, you know, what development process do I have for your consumers, right? You have new people coming in. I know with health and wellness, ours is a little more complicated, right? We're like coaching people and, you know, helping them move along with systems to weight loss or their health goals, right? But even with those of you selling wine, I mean, I'm sure there's ways that you're introducing your new customers, especially if they're joining like your wine club and you're teaching them how to, like, I don't know, manage the website and order their own products, right? What kind of onboarding system do you have for your consumers? And then what kind of onboarding system do you have for your business builders? And again, this goes back to what Reagan and I were talking about in the very beginning. Do you have a simplistic duplication process so that when they come in, they can quickly turn around and grow their business? Do you have an onboarding call? You know, do you have resources for them? Do you have a process for them for three-way calls? You know, how are you getting them up and running to recruit? That is just as important as your own personal development, right? Because if your team isn't growing and leading, your business isn't going to duplicate. So then that that second half of the I is you, right? Your personal development. So your company may have corporate resources for you. You may be in group coaching, which you are, you're in this one right now. Maybe you've got a personal coach, listening to podcasts, books, and development plan, right? Again, the bottom line is you just want to make sure there's a healthy balance between these three. And the best way to test if you're healthy, if you're in a healthy balance is to literally track it out, literally put it on paper and figure out, you can color coordinate it. I've done this in the past. You can color coordinate, introduce, invite, and invest. This is, okay, so this is the getting to be the pharmacist in me being color coordinated, but it can be really helpful. I did this in my Google Calendar, and I color coordinated what was invite, what was invest, what was introduced, to see if my calendar was disproportionately one color, I was falling short on the balance in my business, right? And so the bottom line is that you are, here we go, pull this up. So the bottom line is that at the end of the day, you want to have a calendar based on your qualifying number of hours you're willing to work that's evenly distributed between the three different I's to give you a balanced funnel generation and development of the people you're bringing in. And then you're just going to continue to repeat it over and over and over again. Some of you guys have heard me say this before, but what I would do if I would get to the end of the week and I've been checking things off and I've missed some things, I talked about this in the beginning, having that conversation with your spouse and your children, so that when there's weeks that you fall short, if you need to disappear to a Starbucks for an hour or two, they understand why. And you know that you need to do it because you've tracked it. But if you're not tracking it, then how do you know where to have your finger on the pulse of your business and your progress, right? So anyway, that is my time management presentation. Let me share with you guys really quickly now. I'll walk you through my activity tracker because I know you're probably like, well, what was in there, right? And feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. But you can see in the mornings here, I spent my mornings connecting with people. The very first thing I did was grow my network every day. This was back in the day. It was 5 people a day. Can you guys see that? Grow my network by 5 people. And you can see here, the next thing I also did while I was in the DMs was invite 5 people to the next overview, right? And then over here at 5:15 on Thursdays, I was supporting and commenting on prospects on social media. To me, we can talk about this, but that's an income producing activity to grow your network. So which one is that? That would be introduce, right? This would be an introduce. It's you're just, supporting warm leads that you wanna get closer to. And then over here, I'm creating new content to post, and you'll see I hold myself accountable to doing that a couple different places. I create new content to post on Saturdays. Back in the day, I was just like burnt and spent out in the middle of the week to write content. Kristen, you and I talked about this the other day. I much preferred writing content on Saturdays and Sundays when the little ones were napping. Like, I was more energetic, so I wasn't trying to manage my day job at the same time. So like mentally, I was just in a better space to write content, and I actually enjoyed it. And then, so let's see. You can see here I was posting content every single day, but I would write my content on the weekends. And then at lunchtime each day, I had something different I was trying to do. And here's the thing, especially if you're working from home in a corporate job, like your calendar's going to shift. You just move the tiles around, right? Like just trying to make sure you get them done every day. So once a week, I may look at, and this is probably going to resonate with anyone in network marketing who has consumers, is like you've got customers whose first new shipment's going out. Are you giving them good customer service and reaching out to them? I blocked out time once a week to onboard new enrollments, walk them through everything. I made sure to once a week promote events to the team, right? So that's an invite to take a look, right? Invite, that's the second I, invite to take a look. On Thursdays at lunchtime, I might check in with new enrollments. It might just be a simple DM to see how they're doing, right? That's going to be the development piece, that last I for my new team. So is this making sense to you guys? Like the bottom?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, it's Erin. Yeah, this is actually very helpful. And I think I was the one who emailed. So when I listened to your call or that module, I was like, that's great and all, but I have maybe an hour each day, to dedicate to my business.
Right.
And so that's where I wanted to see how you scaled it proportionate to what your responsibilities were at that time. And seeing how you have it laid out now is pretty much what I do. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and everything.
Yeah. And I think, and that's the biggest thing, Erin, is just, this sounds really anal, but it's just tracking it, and just making sure it's actually getting done. And like each day may change a little bit with your day job, right? So maybe you have a call at noon today, but you've got 15 minutes at 3, right? To like catch up. And I would travel everywhere with a printout. Kristen didn't know it at the time, but I would travel with it printed out in the back of my folder. So if I was stuck at like the airport or waiting on her to come pick me up or whatever, and I've got dead time, and I'd be like, oh, I've got 10 minutes, right? Instead of just thumbing through Instagram or Facebook, wasting time, I would get laser focused right on something that I could like crank out and check off for the day, right?
Melissa, I have a question that can be, in either scenario, if you're trying to time block for full time or, this is your one thing that you do, but like, how much time do you invest in, like, I saw like a quick onboarding and team building, but so there's 2 types of people that you end up with on your team that either suck all your time, who don't build, or do nothing. And some of them have life occurrences. Like we've all heard the amazing stories of so-and-so who kind of just didn't figure it out for 5 months and then shot to the top of whatever company. So, you always like, am I going to have one of those people hidden in my downline? Like I want to give them a little bit of love. Right. So how do you avoid getting sucked into either one of those 2 buckets to keep you in a growth mindset?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what's really helped for me. This is kind of my formula. I typically give the people I've personally enrolled, I typically keep them close to my hip for about 3 months, right? And I give them kind of that direct line of access. I'm really trying to support them to grow for the first 3 months, pretty accessible versus the rest of the team, right? And then after that, it kind of depends on their level of engagement. I'm going to match their energy, right? And if they're not showing up, I'm not showing up, right? As far as, and Kristen knows this, I try to work in groups of people who are running for a certain title, right? So, I might work with like 5 or 10 people at a time in one thread that are working towards executive. But what I've done recently is I've started, and I learned this from Kayla Kraft, who's my business coach. I've started, and again, I've got to start them back up this year. I started a team call once a week on Wednesdays where anyone and everyone can dial into the call and have me as they know when my office hours are. Those are their office hours. Those are my office hours. If you want my coaching, show up to the call. Because the biggest thing, the trap a lot of network marketers fall into, especially those who end up really successful and like leaving their jobs, and I ran into this too, was when you're building around your 9 to 5, you end up having to be available all the time, like around your 9 to 5. And so you set this precedence that you're always available because you're already available outside of working hours to build your business in the first place, right? And it's this like horrible feedback loop because you're just constantly available all the time. And then you leave your corporate job to be free, except now you're available 24 hours a day to your team that wants you all the time, right? And so that's, that was incredible coaching that I got from Kayla last year, was like, no, like you do not have to be available all the time, and you need to set standards and hours for when you are available, and your team will follow suit, right? The people who really want it will follow suit, and the ones you've recently enrolled or that are really, really working hard and contributing, you can make yourself available for them, but you don't have to be all things to everyone. And the quicker you set that expectation and you set that standard, the better. There was a time in my life where I would have more than 400 text messages on my phone in any given day. Yeah. Now I get about 150. Is that helpful or no?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think I have people who show up, but it's not clicking for them. And so they're showing up and they're trying, but maybe they're not seeing the results that they want to see, you know, whether it's enrolling
you
people.
guys have training calls? Like, I know for us, like, we have, our team's so big. I have an upline that, like, we have morning calls Monday through Friday from 8 to 8:30. And Mondays are like shout outs and recognition. Tuesdays are like product features. Wednesdays are connecting, learning how to connect. Thursdays are rising leaders, and Fridays is
Cool idea. Yeah. No,
and
that's
so
a cool idea.
the idea with that is it doesn't matter who you've enrolled, when or where, like they can plug in and learn. And that was kind of what I said to my team. I'm like, look, guys, you've got training coming out of every hole of your body right now. Like we've got our global exec team calls. You've got access to the academy. I built out the 6-figure side hustle, which is a training program for LinkedIn, for Isogenics. Like, it's all there. Like, I'm going to give you standard office hours where you come to me with your questions. Otherwise, all of the training is there, right? Even the opportunity overviews are scheduled, right? So I guess where I was going with that is maybe you entertain, and I will tell you, our team, my upline was really successful. I mean, there's some of the Herb Cepeda even has his calls too, right? Like, he's the #1 income earner in the world. And the one thing he's done since day one is morning calls every single day of every single week. And he's not always leading them. And that's going to be you kind of building your army so that your peers and your co-pilots and maybe some of your upline help run those calls. If you've got some sommeliers who are like brilliant with the wine, like scratch their ego and let them on Tuesdays do wine education, right? Your master connectors that are crushing it, let them run the connecting calls, right? And kind of rise up your leaders and have a rolling roster of topics. And then the people you're enrolling, these people who are struggling, can be inspired by other people within the team, and it's not always you, right? What other questions do you guys have? Thoughts, comments? Who's come up with the number of hours they're going to work? Or do you guys have to look at your calendars?
I'm aiming for an hour a day. Spread out, but yeah.
That's perfect.
I need to figure out how to become more efficient. I'm spending too much time and not getting enough return for what I'm doing. And I think it's because I'm doing too many things at this, like, so I'll answer emails and there's just like, I need to pick one task and stick to it. So I'm listening to this book called Take the Stairs by Rory Vanden. And one chapter in there is on time management and how you create an imbalance in your calendar where you literally turn off everything else. And he had an example of the #1 income earner for Keller Williams, a realtor. And he has time blocked things. That's the one thing he does. Like, he does prospecting calls for 2 hours, but he doesn't do anything else.
Yes.
But then that thing is done.
Yep.
And then, he has date night with his wife. That's the only thing he does.
Yep.
But then he's worked on his relationships. So I have to start doing that because I do too many things. But yes, I'm able to commit lots of hours to my business because I work PRN at the hospital and I'm having hip surgery in 2 weeks. I'm not doing anything for like the next 3 months. So
oh my goodness,
I have plenty of time.
Get your calendar mapped out. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm a huge proponent of working in time blocks. I do not multitask at all. And sometimes it drives my team, my LinkedIn Method team crazy. I don't answer emails or DMs or texts before 10 a.m. Like, Rarely ever. I spend the first 2 hours on the things I need to get done for my business. Because all it takes, let's say there's 2 key things you want to do to grow your business that day, and you've got an hour in the morning. And the first thing you do is check your DMs or check email, and you're put into a rabbit hole of something a teacher needs for your kid, or your boss needs from this, or somebody in your downline can't find something and they need it and you know where it is. And all of a sudden you're in this rabbit hole and you look back and you've lost 30 minutes. And all you've done is answer other people's urgent needs, right? I had this conversation, like my LinkedIn team a while ago was like, what would be really helpful is if we just had like a 15-minute call with you every morning at like 8 a.m. And I'm like, that's a horrible idea. You just want to pepper me for 15 minutes on shit you need from me. And that's not going to work. like plan the day before, right? So like, look at your calendar. And this is kind of like where my mindset is. Look at your calendar at 3 o'clock the day before. If you need something from me, don't start my day with what you need. Like, be ready for your day when you wake up in the morning, right? Because when I start my morning between 8 and 10, I'm working on what I need to do to drive my businesses. I'm not answering other people's needs. So they know now. Like, they'll send me messages and they know they're not going to hear a word from me until like 10 o'clock. So part of that is just conditioning people too, right? How many times have you just gone to do something you thought was going to be really quick, or we're like addicted to being needed and like getting messages from people, right? So like, you think all you're going to do is like check this message, and then all of a sudden you're in a rabbit hole, right? And somebody's asking you to do something and you need to go to this link and then you need to check your calendar, and then you're like, oh my God, and then you didn't get done what you needed to get done. So like, for the book you're reading, love it. That's how I operate. That's how I live. Like, when I leave the house at 4 to get my kids, I put my phone on airplane mode now. And I just am like, don't even want to be distracted. Because that's the other thing. Like, if you're trying to do your business while you're juggling your kids, like, I used to get so frustrated and it wouldn't even be their fault. I'm like trying to read a text message or read a DM or read something, and they're tugging on my leg and they want to talk to me. And I'm like, shh, and then they end up in a fight because I'm not listening to them. I'm staring at my phone instead. And then I'm reading the message 12 times, trying to figure out how to respond to it because I'm trying to multitask.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, just turn your phone off. And what I'll do a lot of times is I'll turn my phone off, spend time with kids, have dinner, get the 2 littler ones to bed, and then I might do a 30-minute check-in on all my accounts, and clear out for the night. I don't end my night with their messages. That's the other thing I used to do a lot when I was still working full-time. So I would end my night like on my phone, trying to respond to everybody, and then you lay down and you can't sleep, right? So it's like setting those boundaries for yourself, for sure. Airplane mode has become my like new favorite thing. It's on airplane mode when I go to bed at night. So when I wake up, I'm not being notified and seeing all this when my alarm goes off. I'm not waking up to, oh shit, what did I miss? Right? When my alarm goes off in the morning, it's completely blank, and I don't turn it on till, get this, after my kids leave the house. So I do my morning meditation, I do my journaling. Now I've got more time now than I used to. So but airplane mode is a great, when you're trying to really time block, Estelle, put your phone in airplane mode. Turn the notifications off on your computer.
Yeah, and I have to figure out where that button is. But yeah, I keep my phone in my office. It doesn't come upstairs to my room. So I'm like, that I don't want to start my day with other people's anxieties and craziness. I want to be ready to do that. But yeah, you're right.
My mom gives me the worst updates in the world. Like, the world. I'm like, Mom, I don't need to know that right now.
No, but you're right. One message is, I did that yesterday. I wanted to just work out. I got dressed, I turned on my Peloton, and then I looked at my phone and someone asked me something about collagen. And then it became like, I looked up and I'm like, now I don't have time to work out because I have another meeting coming up. Yes. And I was really pissed.
I have a private client that has this problem with taking her phone to her Peloton. That's another thing. Your time to work out is time to fill your cup, like feel fully refreshed. If it's what's 30 minutes? Put your phone away. Get the workout. It's tempting. But you're not going to get as good a workout, right? If you're not in the zone.
No, and then I was distracted the whole time. And I was just like, now you just ruined my day. Well, I ruined my day by letting you ruin my day.
That's
So
right.
boundaries.
That's right. That's right. Yes, Lisa?
So in time blocking, I'd heard you mention this before, because you had like a Friday is reserved for your follow-up. So I know that, do you find it best when you're saying that you don't multitask? So let's say Monday is content creation, Tuesday is reaching out to new people, or do you reach out to new people each day, or do you reserve certain days for certain activities?
Yeah, so when I look back, this was literally my calendar from when I was working full-time. So when I worked full-time, I reached out to just a couple people every day. I didn't have a lot of time. So it was 5 people a day. A little bit every day makes a huge impact, right? If you want a time block and reach out and connect with a lot of people at one time and that be it for the week, you can totally do it that way too, right? That's just the way I did it. To this day, I find cleaning up and responding to messages, I do them once a week on Fridays. It's just too much to keep up with. I like to work like on one, in the DMs, messaging these people and responding to them instead of, going everywhere. And it's tempting because when you're in the DMs and you're responding to people, you're like getting other messages coming through too, and you're getting notifications and you're like, you're so tempted. You want to go look at that thing. That's what it's there to do, is to like ding and try to get your attention, but I try to stay in the zone and just crank it out. And it's the same with requests to connect. I'm going to have to jump off in a minute because I've got a call with another client, but I go into the requests to connect where people have requested to connect with me once a week because I have my scripts there with me and I'm in the zone and I'm going to be responding. And that's the only action I'm going to do until the requests to connect are done, clean. New slate for next week. Done. That one's done, right?
And then when you do that, nothing gets lost because that's what you're focused on. I like that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, I'm going to run so I can get ready for this next call, but hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Would it be helpful if maybe I tried to clean up that sheet and like give you guys kind of some ideas on kind of clear time management? Like, I know I showed you guys what I had, but maybe create kind of a worksheet or something for you guys to use or to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
Worksheets are great. This was great timing because I just listened to that podcast the other day and I got a meal kit delivery. I'm like, I got to do this stuff. So
yes,
it was great.
What's that?
Which podcast?
I think it was, I don't know the number of it, but it's on Time Management. You can it's under Burnout to All Out, my podcast. One that I did recently. I recorded 2 last week. I'm excited for those to drop. All right, ladies. Well, this was fun. Keep up the feedback, what you want over the next couple of months, and I'll keep bringing it to you, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Bye.